Hi, I'm Dr. Celine Gelgich.
And I'm Dr. Tori Miller.
Welcome to Breaking the Rules.
On Breaking the Rules, we talk about all things OCD.
Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, impacts up to 1 to 2% of the population. We are here to provide not just education, but to inspire clinicians, families, and people who are impacted by OCD to be able to access the treatment they need in order to get better.
Catch us every fortnight, wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, mate.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. That was a very enthusiastic, hey, how's it going? Oh my God. Now that we've switched to videos, I've noticed my face is like this serious, like half the time. So I'm going to be trying to be a bit more cheerful looking.
I mean, OCD is a serious topic,
It
though.
is.
It's very
It's like
serious.
my concentration face. My brother, now I understand why my brother always says, why do you look pissed off half the time? I'm like, I'm thinking. I'm not pissed off. I'm concentrating.
Oh, so you tell me, Celine, you don't actually hate me. All this time I thought you were just perpetually pissed off with me.
Oh my gosh. Oh, in all seriousness, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm happy to be back here with you.
Yes.
Recording another
Another
episode.
series?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. No, I'm good. I'm we're heading towards the end of the year,
I know.
which is really nice.
It's insane. It's
Yeah.
November. Well, now it's November, but by the time this comes out, it might not
Yeah.
be November anymore.
Mm.
But we're, I think, very much feeling
Yeah.
the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also something about, I don't know, it's like the sun comes out. I don't know, the days get longer and there's something about feeling like there's more time on your hands or things are, I don't know, relaxing or something. I really felt the first moments of that yesterday, like, oh, like the summer's coming.
Yes.
You know, like there's something about yesterday that just,
Yeah.
felt lovely for just a mere moment.
I can resonate with that.
Yeah.
In terms of when you come home from work, it's not pitch black.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I can still do stuff.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, oh my God, it's dark already. It's nearly bedtime. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Moral scrupulosity and
Yes.
OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this topic.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I find this one comes up a lot. Well, at least, okay. I'd be curious to see what you think. I find that moral scrupulosity is incredibly common.
Yes.
I think that it's very common. And what I think is that especially it's very common in adults, but I also think it's quite common in teens and kids.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think I see it almost like sitting underneath, but it's not as easily spotted because I think the compulsions that are more evident, because the kids sometimes can't talk about it or identify or name it in the same way that adults can, it's not as easy to spot, but it lives there as sort of like a driving force underneath some of the compulsions that they're doing.
Yeah.
But the compulsions don't always necessarily easily identify this theme, but it's such a good one to identify, particularly I think, because it helps parents understand what's driving their kids' behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the question of OCPD is also a really interesting one because I do think sometimes we're trying to do ERP and work with this presumption of flexibility and openness in our clients that actually may not be there because in fact the presentation is actually less OCD, more OCPD.
Yes.
And so I think that, understanding the difference and knowing how to kind of think about the two concepts and how to work with them differently, I think is really important. Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
That's a nice intro into what we're talking about today. So maybe we should define both of those things.
Yeah.
In case people don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
I'll flag scrupulosity in a supervision session and they'll be like, what's that?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Or a client would do the same. So we have moral scrupulosity, which is basically just a theme of OCD where someone is very preoccupied about or really worried about being seen as a bad person.
Yeah.
And there could be a religious undertone to it. So being worried about blasphemy and defending God and all that sort of stuff. It could be, these days we see it more in terms of people being really worried about their morals and values and upholding those morals and
Yeah.
values and holding themselves to a really high standard. So it's quite internal.
Yeah.
They might be worried that they've offended someone in a conversation, so they might rehearse conversations in their mind to make sure that they haven't, or they're worried that they might be seen as a bad person or that they've done the wrong thing or whatever else it might be, which is why I agree with you wholeheartedly about teens, because the perfectionistic kind of, excuse me for describing it this way, but like the goody two-shoes student who doesn't ruffle any feathers, who's kind of rule abiding and all that sort of stuff. Beautiful qualities to have as a person.
Gorgeous.
But it's okay to kind of mess it up a bit too.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
And there can be that tension in adolescence, isn't there? About,
yes.
you know, the desire to be a bit naughty that can then leave someone who kind of identifies as being a good, sensible, moral person.
Yes.
It can leave them feeling very icky and uncomfortable about, you know, what does it mean that I, want to do these naughty things.
Yeah, exactly. Go out drinking with my friends.
That I lied to my mother.
Yes. How dare you? All of that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's moral scrupulosity.
Yeah.
Then we have OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
Yeah.
Very similar name to OCD, but couldn't be any more different.
Agreed.
It's treated differently. First and foremost, it's a personality disorder. It's not an anxiety. Or it doesn't come under obsessive compulsive and related disorders, which is why we find it doesn't necessarily respond well to ERP.
Yeah.
Some of it might be helpful, but not really. First and foremost, OCPD can be seen as a really extreme form of perfectionism. And perfectionism in its broadest sense, not just aesthetically or liking things neat and tidy. It's also again, morals, values, which is why we're talking about both of them together, because we want to tease apart, well, what comes under moral scrupulosity and OCD versus rigidity around morals and values with OCPD. And so, someone might hold themselves and others to a certain standard, like they might find it hard to finish work and let go of that. There might be a lot of perfectionism around that. Or they might, like the house neat and tidy in some ways, but again, lots of inflexibility and rigidity around how that is. They might dress a certain way, act a certain way, get quite irritated and angry quite easily because others aren't following the rules.
Yeah, so there can be some righteousness, like this is the right way. So that cognitive inflexibility, like these are the rules. This is how it should be. I am right. It's strange that you don't live your life the same way.
Yes, exactly. So you do see a lot of that prickliness.
And an absence of doubt.
Yes, there is an absence of doubt. And which means it's ego-syntonic.
Yeah.
So it's consistent with that person's values and beliefs versus the moral scrupulosity OCD, which is there's still the ego-dystonic nature around it. It's still quite inconsistent.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with something very different.
Yeah. I think that's a really lovely distinction, and I think a really important one to make, because it does impact how you treat.
Yeah.
And I think it's also OCPD is a good differential to have in mind when treating someone with OCD. If there's a sense of stuckness, or if you're having trouble during your assessment kind of getting someone to identify where the distress is, or if they've got a lack of willingness to change and things like that, like OCPD is a good differential to have in your mind. But maybe if we come back to OCD and moral scrupulosity, I really enjoy working with my clients in relation to this theme. But what I do find, which I want to talk about with you, Celine, is that sometimes I find that clients have a reluctance to want to let this one go.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because if we drill down, right, as you were saying before, it stems from a place or a desire or of wanting to be a good person, which I think taps into something that is very understandable as a human being.
Absolutely.
The desire to be good, to treat others well, to not hurt anybody, and I think there are some environmental factors, like if you've grown up in a family or in a culture that really values how you treat other people, if you've got a strong connection to community,
Yes.
perhaps if you've had a religious upbringing, and so there's been a
Mhm.
strong emphasis on morals, right, wrong, good
Mhm.
decision making.
Mhm.
And if those are things that you value
Mhm.
and that you think are important to you as a person, but also as a foundation to relationships, when you get to certain points in life where either you make a mistake or you start to feel some tension,
Mhm.
perhaps competing values, like I want to be there for my family, but I also want to work some extra hours or whatever, or
Yep.
as a teenager, I want to be good and do my homework and like my parents have said, but I also really want to go to this party.
Mhm.
I think that can raise some just intense internal pressure and
Mhm.
stress that can be very, very difficult for people with lots of anxiety or a sort of predisposition to OCD to handle. And the compulsions then feel delicious in that moment
Mm.
for helping them to sort of relieve themselves of some of that internal pressure and distress.
Yeah.
And
I think that tension, you described it so beautifully in terms of towing the line between those two
yeah,
things and trying to reconcile
yeah,
that tension is where the treatment's at,
yeah, yeah,
really, in terms of, but it's there and it's so
yeah,
strong
yeah,
and probably one of the themes where it's the strongest,
yeah,
for the reason that you
yeah,
described. I noticed that too, and it can be really hard for clients to I guess diffuse
yeah,
from that tension and
yeah,
kind of find that balance.
yeah. And
And it's challenging but not impossible in a sense that it just takes time.
agreed,
Lots
agreed.
of conversation, lots of exposures,
Yeah,
lots of testing the waters and
yeah.
like,
Because I think there's, like any theme that you're working with, there is
mm,
the reduction of the compulsion, which is fine and good and important.
yes.
But then there's the sort of the conceptual component that sits underneath,
Yeah.
which is, as you say, like the reconciling of the tension and
Mm,
the navigating of who we are as human beings and the kind of people we want to be,
yeah.
and how we move through this world that also needs a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just reduce doing compulsions. I
Mhm.
mean, compulsions will just pop up somewhere else if you haven't
Yes.
been able to
Yeah,
reconcile this.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
I see it a lot in the teen group that we run, in our
Mhm.
support group.
Mm.
This comes up so often because there is so much guilt that they carry.
Mhm.
There is they move through their their lives with such good intention,
Mhm.
but they're also incredibly fallible, in part because they're humans, in part because they're
Yeah.
teenagers,
Yeah, and they're trying to figure it
and they're
out.
trying to figure it out and they don't
Yeah.
necessarily know exactly who they are yet.
Mhm.
They're trying to be right to themselves, but good to others as well. And they're just all sitting with so much
Mm.
guilt in relation to,
Mm.
how am I best friends with this person, but also, you know,
Yep.
can I go to this party that my best friend wasn't invited to because I really want to go, but am I letting her down? And what I see a lot is also kids and teens
Mhm.
who, especially, who feel like, they're going against their parents' wishes, or they're starting to develop their own mind and starting to think things in opposition to their parents, and the guilt that they feel about that,
Mhm.
feeling like they're a bad person, which often leads to a lot of confessing. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe, and it can be so awful. I mean, Penny Moody describes this beautifully in her book about the confessing she did to her mum. But one of my clients, oh, he was so tangled up because he kept confessing to his mum about his sexual development. And he just was so deeply
Be embarrassed about.
embarrassed and ashamed to
Yes.
be doing that. And he wanted to stop so badly,
Yeah.
but he felt so guilty for what he
Mm.
thought was having, impure,
Mhm.
improper
Thoughts.
thoughts.
Yeah.
He felt like his mum needed to know who he was and that he was letting her down.
Yeah. It's so fascinating how it presents differently. Like it's one theme, right? But it shows up in so many different ways. A question I have for you, just
Yeah.
riffing off what you were describing before
Yeah.
and how teens feel. And I think a lot of adults feel the same way because there's a lot of adults who would confess to partners and sometimes still even their mums.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's true.
calling their mum for confession time. Do you think the culture that we live in today with like social media and, the whole cancel culture and all the rest of it, but also the discussion around political spheres and how strongly people are divided
Mm.
nowadays would influence a lot of that? or kind of weighs in a little bit.
I mean, it's got to, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's so much more anxiety about being caught out.
Yeah.
I think on one hand,
Mm-hmm.
I think because cameras and videos are everywhere
Yep.
and people do
I don't want to
pile
be the
on.
person on TikTok who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, that sense of, the risks feel higher, that once
Mhm.
upon a time, if you made sort of an error or did something kind of embarrassing, it would just, eventually it would die with just the people who attended the party and then it would move on. But
Yeah.
now the fact that things get caught on camera, I think this shit lives forever, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it probably puts people more on edge.
Mhm.
But I think you're also right in that it seems online, because the nuance has gone out of a lot of people's positions because people are sort of presenting their elevator pitches all the time. So
Mhm.
people, I think we're seeing people look like they have really, clear morals, kind of more black and white thinking, right and wrong, which I think means that we're losing sort of touch with the art of ambiguity and grey and debate, which I think for people
Curiosity.
with, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for people with moral scrupulosity, it would be really difficult to be sitting with this sort of ambiguity in their minds and to be sitting in this grey and to not know, like it's not being modeled to them what to do with that,
Yes.
how to handle it, and actually that's a really normal thing.
Yeah. Or whether they even have permission.
Yeah, that you don't have
Because-
to be all knowing all the time. Yeah.
Because it feels like, society doesn't give us permission to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Seemingly.
Seemingly.
Whereas
yeah.
in treatment, we're like, no, you're allowed to be curious about
Yeah.
this stuff. You're allowed to think a little bit of this and a little bit of that
Yeah.
and whatever else comes in.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
So I
question.
think
That's
all
really
of that
interesting.
would weigh into,
Yeah, I could really imagine that being true.
Yeah. Especially for the youngies.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about confessing being one of the compulsions. What else
Yes.
do you see?
Confession for sure. The other one I see a lot of the time is comparison, not just self and self and others. I also see lots of rumination. Rumination's a big one.
So much.
And it could look like anything. It could look like looking up things online to scanning conversations you've had in your own head or prepping conversations, which can then look a little bit like social anxiety as well.
Yeah.
So that's a differential you've got to be mindful of in this space. And it can, for people who have religious undertones, it can look like lots of praying, asking for forgiveness and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, they're probably the more common ones that I've noticed. Anything you want to add to that list?
Maybe I'd add researching as well,
Yeah.
particularly sort of scanning online like Reddit forums and things.
Yeah, for others' opinions.
For others' opinions, looking for like-minded people, looking for validation.
Yeah. Or asking ChatGPT
for
validation. ChatGPT will validate anyone. Just put
over
it out
anything.
there. Over anything. Yes, everyone's right. Yep.
And then lots of reassurance seeking.
Yeah. Yes.
So much reassurance seeking. Yeah. And then I think
the other one, over-apologising.
Oh my gosh, over-apologising.
Yes, just saying sorry all the time. It's like, stop saying sorry.
Yes, that's such a big one.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And then also self-monitoring as well. So that kind of preoccupation with action and what I'm doing, to try to prevent anything bad from happening.
Yes.
Which can make people very slow and hard to engage and because they're so stuck in their head sort of watching and monitoring as they do things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do we do about it?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. That's what you want to hear. What do we do about it? Well, first of all, like with anything, we gather as much data as we can. But also, because I think this one in particular needs a lot of psychoeducation because there's so much of it that's enmeshed with our client's value system. And we talk about something being ego-dystonic. There is an element of it that is, but not as clearly as it is with some of the other themes. Because like you mentioned before, there's so much of it that's tied with just generally just wanting to be a good person, not being an asshole in the world. Like, so providing lots of psychoed and giving lots of examples.
Mm.
Like, you know, do you ever find yourself over-apologising for things or rehearsing conversations in your mind? Like basically some of the stuff that we just listed off just before.
Yeah.
So that means having an understanding of it for yourself too,
Yeah.
as a clinician. And there are loads of great questionnaires out there. Like Jonathan Grayson's one in his book is a really good detailed one.
I think that's a really good one too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
clients to kind of go through, where it just prompts them where insight might not be
Yeah.
readily available.
That's when I use it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good insight building one. And you've got some of your other ones too, which can be really helpful. But the more you collect that data with your client and just be openly curious about it, then spending time trying to engage in exposure tasks. And some of that would feel really uncomfortable. And it could look like, you know, riding the urge to ring and confess or riding the urge to apologize for something that you know you didn't do anything wrong for.
Yeah. Resisting the urge to ruminate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
It could be writing down lies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Writing down lies or telling lies.
Do you know the other thing that we used to do in the hospital I used to work at? We'd get clients to write down what they really thought of us as the clinician team. You got to have a thick skin.
Oh my gosh, I want to do that in group.
Yeah, it would be really hard, but you'd love it. So basically we'd get them to write down what they really thought of us and fold it in half, and then we'd read it away from them so they couldn't even gauge our reactions. And then we'd come back and be like, tell me how you really feel, blah. Like
that's great.
Yeah, so we did stuff like that too. You could be so creative with it.
For people who are sort of struggling with perhaps like compulsive praying and things, who might identify as religious, it might be actually playing around with reading things, you know, that directly contradict the church, or even sort of reading some content about Satan, for example, or, you know, as though, you know.
You could even write 666 on a cue card and pop it all over your mirrors in the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah.
Or around the house, etc.
Yeah.
With little post-its and things.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
Yeah, there's so you can get really creative here, like any of the themes. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say was with exposures in this thing, one thing and I don't know how you feel about this, it can maybe lean into a little bit of reassurance, but I often tell my clients, like, you've got to remind yourself at the end of the day that we're doing this to push back against OCD. It doesn't define who you are as a person. We're not trying to change your value system.
Yeah.
We're just bringing in some flexibility.
But I think that's where you know, what you were talking about before in relation to the
tension?
No, the psychoeducation.
Yes.
You know, that's what that component is about, about understanding human development and what it means to be good versus bad, and that, you know, the philosophy of, you know, good people do bad things and bad people do good things, and all things in between, and even just sort of, you know, exploring some of those philosophical sides of human development, because I think that so that we can help our clients move away from that binary way of thinking. And have a look, because I think you're right, like it can start to tread on the territory of reassurance, so the provision of reassurance, but there is a component which I think our clients do become really fixated on, the idea of I must be all good all the time. But in fact, I think sometimes we need to give them permission to be human.
Absolutely.
And to actually get them to think about, you know, the idea of, you know, people that perhaps they've idealized in their lives, and actually challenge the concept that they're all good all the time. Yeah. Like when we were growing up, I know the example that was given to me is Mother Teresa.
Oh, yes.
I think, you know, what did someone say to me once? Even Queen Elizabeth does poo on the toilet.
Her shit stinks too.
Her shit stinks too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. It's true, because to be human is to be messy. Like, we don't have pure, perfect thoughts all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's where I think psychoeducation, I think, is really important. And I do know that some of my supervisees get really worried about that, about how to navigate reassurance versus psychoeducation. But as we always say, provide it once, and then notice if they keep coming back for
Yes.
more and more and more. And that's when you know.
That's the treatment.
That's when you know.
That's when you pull back. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about that, but we introduced OCPD at the beginning.
Yes.
Let's come back around to
that.
OCPD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder, we're talking about a personality disorder here. So very different to what Tori and I have just kind of spoken about in terms of treating it, what to be mindful of, etc. OCPD looks very much like, I'm going to say probably what people use to describe OCD who have no idea what OCD actually is.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
when you look
People
at
say like
media,
I'm so OCD.
Yes, they're probably actually referring to OCPD.
Far more
the
so.
really intense perfectionist who likes doing things a certain way, who has certain rules and rigidity around certain things, how the house needs to look, how they dress, their own morals and values. And you often hear, and they'll often present to treatment because it's the people around them that are struggling and want them to get treatment as opposed to them themselves. They'll often say, well, if someone just followed the rules, then it would be fine.
Yeah.
So we're, from a treatment perspective, we're often bringing things in like schema therapy approaches, DBT approaches, and some ACT-based approaches to kind of help introduce flexibility but in a different way.
Yeah.
And like you said before, it's less about intrusive thoughts and compulsions. It's more about rigidity and behaviors around wanting control.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And thinking about the areas of their lives where their rigidity is impacting on what they want from their life. So maybe it's impacting their marriage, or maybe it's making them late for work all the time, or it's making them actually really unproductive at work because they're, going over emails over and over and over again to make it perfect.
Yep.
So
or
then
it could be impacting their relationship with their kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then the work is more around flexibility in thinking, but also in behavior to nurture those aspects of their life that they want to see some change in, rather than insisting that it is the world around them that changes for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you'd probably bring in some interpersonal skill, like all the DBT stuff around that too.
Yeah.
And being able to manage those behaviors,
Yeah.
but also relational struggles as well. That'll happen as well. Typical of any other PD.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what's tricky with OCPD is that oftentimes people don't necessarily present for treatment with OCPD unless they perhaps have been really encouraged by a family member, or there are some co-occurring difficulties that have brought them in. Because oftentimes they're quite content in their worlds with things that way, and they often do tend to think in a way that sort of suggests that the people around them are the ones that need to change, which actually means that they don't necessarily see a reason for therapy or a rationale for change.
Exactly.
But still, it can still turn up in the room, so it's really good to watch for.
For sure.
Yeah, because we can get stuck down a rabbit hole. I think in my experience, what it sort of sometimes manifests as, it looks like moral scrupulosity, and it looks like an anxious presentation, like I've got to get this right, it's got to be perfect, I've got to do it right. But then they're completely reluctant to engage in ERP, and you can just get stuck in motivational interviewing and trying right, and just go round and round in circles trying to convince them to engage in ERP when in fact it actually isn't ERP that you need to be doing, because it's not actually OCD.
Yeah, that's right. But I think something else to kind of highlight would be what you mentioned before in terms of the co-occurring conditions. It's highly co-occurring with OCD.
Yeah, so you can have both.
Yeah, you can have both.
Yeah.
So not to freak anyone out. The freaky part for me, and I've had a couple of clients like this a lot actually over the years, is when moral scrupulosity feeds off OCPD, and the interplay between those two is so sticky and so messy.
Yeah.
And your client just finds themselves like, there's the moral scrupulosity, which kind of is there to make them feel a bit less of an a-hole. And then, I said asshole before, I don't know why I'm saying a-hole now. And then the OCPD kicks off, and it's just like they're just in this ball of twine, and you don't even know where to start pulling it apart from. So I think the only thing that really helps is supervision or bouncing your idea of formulation off with your colleagues.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it will co-occur with OCD up to about 35%. So
Yeah.
it's fairly decent.
Yeah.
The other question that's coming up more recently is it OCPD or is it autism?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's another episode. So
Oh, 100%.
we'll park that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that we just need to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in my experience, what I've found is trusting, transparent relationships
Yes.
and conversations with your client
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
And to have confidence as a clinician to not be all knowing and to not feel like you've got to sit behind this wall as though you know everything, and to say to your client, you know what I'm wondering and what I'm noticing is, and what I see us getting stuck on, and the things that I'm observing is that there's this sort of, cycle going around, or, I wonder, have you heard about OCPD? It's just on my mind a bit at the moment, that maybe this is sort of fueling some of the stuckness that's more complex than just OCD here. And I think that it is okay to have these sorts of conversations with our clients. And then if it does end up being diagnosed, and that is then the formulation, then you can start saying, hey, what are we dealing with in this moment?
Call it out.
Call it out. Where are we at? I'm sensing some rigidity here. Is that from a place of fear? Have we triggered something today in this conversation that's making you want to, engage in some compulsions and avoid, or am I talking to your intellectual rigid self who's kind of coming and going, Tori, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know better than you. Yeah. And actually, this is the right way to be doing things, and this is why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, dialogue about it.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. 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 We should wrap up. We could go on and on and on and on and on.
We could talk about this forever.
Yes, we should stop. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good one.
Thank you so much for your wonderful insights as always.
You too, Celine.
Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. Stay tuned for the next episode.